Hello, Beverly, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good, good. I've gotten, 2, 3.
Got what?
I've gotten 2 or 3 text messages from your fellow students. You all may not have many there today. I'll need you all, since I can't see faces, I'll need you all to tell me who's there and who's not.
Brent and Clayton.
Brent and who?
Clayton?
All right. I did. Right? I asked for you all to research drones and the laws that went with drones and I don't have my notes in front of me. What was the other thing? Data mining, that was it. Data mining. I apologize to you all for not having all your stuff graded and back to you quickly. I'm gonna dedicate myself to it this weekend and try to get caught up on my grading. I've been teaching 5 classes till now, and that ended last week. Somebody else took over my 5th class and started, so I'm back to 4. It's a little more manageable now with just 4. So I'll work on this weekend getting my grading stuff caught up, and we'll get everything graded and get you all caught up, and we'll move on. I've been trying to grade some of those along, but when you prepare to teach 5 classes, if you prepare them right, it doesn't leave a whole lot of time to back up and grade and read the papers like I need to read them. The 5th class I was teaching was forensics class. It's very interesting. I'm hoping to push them to add a little bit more of a law enforcement component to that, to interest some of the criminal justice students and not just the science majors into that class, because it needs to have more of a, it really needs to have more of a criminal justice component, not just a science component. I mean, the science component has to be there, but.
I don't even think it's required for that.
No, it's not. That's what I'm saying. It could be a minor, you know, and you could have 3 minors. You could have corrections, police work, forensic science. If they will include a little more of the criminal justice component, we need to create a class or 2. Like, to me, there needs to be 1 whole semester devoted to crime scene, just crime scene. Because you need to talk about the intricacies of a crime scene. You know?
That'll take a while.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't do it in a whole semester, but you could at least scratch the surface in a semester.
Yeah, me too.
They asked me to talk about crime scene in that class in a week. I had to cover that material in a week. You know, and so my thing right off the top to those students was, look, I'm not even gonna scratch the surface of crime scene. Y'all are just gonna get an overview is what you're gonna get in a week.
Yeah.
Because the intricacies of a crime scene, you know, we could talk about this for a whole semester.
I kind of did that at New River at Dublin. I got an associate's in forensic science from there. We had 2 classes on nothing but that. It was part 1 and part 2.
Right. And that probably would be really good. That probably, part 1 probably really just needs to be an introductory and you know, evidence and evidence collection and all that kind of stuff. And then part 2 go into things a little bit deeper.
Yeah, we did fingerprint extraction and diagrams and measurements, all that.
Right. I agree. I completely agree. Hello, young man. How's that shoulder?
That's good. Better, are you?
I can't complain. You're off the snowboarding for a while, I trust, right?
I went yesterday.
To be young. You gotta be tough, I guess. I understand. And I'm gonna tell you something. You're brave for standing on that elevator without choosing the floor, because it's cold on an elevator. I don't understand. The rest of this building's pretty comfortable, but you get on the elevator and it's like 10 below.
Yeah.
Seems like to me the building would at least warm the shaft up a little bit.
Nope.
Cause I'm telling you, that elevator is cold. You could store meat on that elevator, it's so cold. All right, let's roll. I asked you all last week to research for me and talk to me about data mining and drones. So let's come in. Let's get into our data mining situation. Let's start talking about our data mining. I would like for somebody to tell me what you found about data mining or mass data collection.
Not a new thing.
Oh, it's not a new thing. Tell me about that.
Well, businesses have been using it for years, like grocery stores and things like that, to collect information about the purchasing habits of their occupants and things like that.
Okay.
It's not something that's new and it's not exclusively used by the government. In fact, it's probably more so used by the government.
So data mining was created it's been around for a long, long time. It's not exclusively used by the government, and it's used quite extensively by the private sector. Private sector is using it to determine demographics and buying habits of their customers, right? And unbeknownst to us, we get data mined every time we buy something. Well, even before that, I remember years and years ago, and I'm telling myself there used to be a place, and the grocery stores are doing the same thing now. They offer you, are you a member of the Food Line Club? Do you have a discount card? Do you have a Food City discount card? They offer you a percentage discount because they have all your personal information. And every time you use that card, you get a small discount, but they're able to track your purchases. They're able to track what you buy. They're able to compile that information based on what everybody else buys, right? And so it gives them the ability to mine that data, which is actually interesting. I hadn't actually conceived of this conversation turning in that way, but that's a very good observation, and it's very, very true. So we've been data mined, whether we know it or not, for years and years and years, generally by the private sector and generally for use in helping them create better businesses, right, to make more money. So it doesn't necessarily cause us any harm. What else do we know about data mining?
Well, the older data mining they've done wasn't as private as it is now. You know, used to they would collect like zip codes of where you live so they could have a general region. Now it's, you know, exactly who you are they're collecting.
I would agree with that. And basically what's happened with that is there was a time several years ago when it was just, the technology wasn't there. It was almost impossible to narrow it down to an individual or to a family. The technology exists now to narrow it down to that individual. The internet, our online shopping, the way we've integrated our POS or point of sale systems in the stores, we can now isolate people down and track people down to the, to the individual.
Everybody has a cell phone now.
Right. You may have a mama who's got a card, a Food City card, and you may have daddy who's got a different Food City card, and you may have a 16 or 17-year-old daughter that's got her own Food City card. And you can track them right down to the individual person. Same thing with purchasing online. Our internet, our capability to track has gone way up. It's gone way up. What else do we know about data mining?
That it's a big controversial issue.
Say again?
It's a very controversial issue.
It is very controversial. What were you going to say, Mr. Lee?
Police are using it now, absolutely.
Absolutely. What happened is, and kind of where that, after 9/11, the federal government decided that they were going to need to gather a lot of data about a lot of people worldwide. I don't know whether their intent was to start gathering that data on American citizens or not. I think probably their original intent was to try to gather that information about people worldwide, to try to start to narrow down who was connected to who. And I'll give you all an instance of data mining used in law enforcement that I saw that really, really works. And it came based on technology, and I want to tie it into something bigger. I was often confused as to why and how the United States government got into the business of data mining its own citizens. But I'm convinced after seeing it on a much smaller model that it happened by accident. It just was one of those things where it was sort of a natural progression and it rolled over. And I'll tell you this, I'll tell you my little story so y'all can talk to me and give me some feedback on a bigger story. When I went over to, I was working at a prison. I was working at a prison over on the North Carolina line. And they have a data mining system over there where they data mine the telephones and the email. Those offenders over there at prison could send emails. Okay? They could send emails to anybody they want. Cost them 50 cents an email. Now it was scanned and read before it was sent. In other words, they wasn't going to let them send the email to the governor and threaten to kill him, right? Because they were scanning them. But as long as it was to a pre-approved email address, they could send however many emails they wanted. And again, they charged them a fee. I think it was a quarter for every email that they wanted to see versus sending a letter. Now, they had a software system in place, and they were mining the data from all of these offenders. They were mining the emails, they were mining the phone calls of all of these offenders that were going out. These offenders signed a piece of paper saying, yeah, I know I have no right to privacy in here. So they kind of knew, but they didn't kind of know. Well, in this board, when you go into the intel office in this prison, they have this huge board. And there's hundreds of names and hundreds of names on it. And there's a web. And this web shows all of the interaction of all of the people on that board. And just from the data mining of all of this information from these inmates that were coming out, they were starting to infiltrate organized criminal gangs on the street and share that information with the state police and with the other federal agencies. And those people were being able to use that information and to preemptively strike these street gangs. We had webs. We established webs and connections to people that the state police had been working on for years and couldn't do it. And we established connections. We even had recorded phone calls. We had written text messages. We were looking at Crips and Bloods out of New York. We were looking at Latin Kings out of Arizona, Southern California, New Mexico. We were looking at Hell's Angels out of the Northwest. We had all of these people. We had them networked right in. Now, somewhere in that mess was Mommy and Daddy. Right? Somewhere in this mess was Mom and Pop and my little bitty baby boy and my teenage daughter and my son who's gone off to college and people who weren't doing anything somewhere in this data mess. So what I think happened with our data mining on a national level is we start looking at these terror networks and we start trying to mine this data of all this information that's floating around out there, and they start building a web much like we built inside that prison. And before you know it, that web comes back into the United States. Huh? Whether by a sleeper cell or whether they just know somebody in the United States and want to call and say, hey. And now all of a sudden they start mining data inside the United States. And that all goes as planned because we as United States citizens are also trusting, and we go swipe our Food City card and think nothing of it, right? We're used to it in a way. Until somebody decides that they've gathered too much information on me and they didn't get a warrant to do it. So at what point is data mining actively investigating a crime?
Once you have something to link it to a crime.
Do you? Do you have to have something to link it to a crime before data mining becomes a criminal investigation? At what point does gathering all of my phone calls and all of my text messages become a criminal investigation?
I would say once it becomes focused on looking for anything.
And okay, so he says, because when you become suspicious, and he says when you link it to a crime, and you say, again, when it comes focused, instead of looking at the classroom as a whole, they go zzz, and zero in on Raznik, right? It's interesting. What does the Constitution say about my effects? The Constitution
your
says
right.
I have the right to be secure in my papers and my effects. Is that what it says? What does
Even
that
your
mean?
thoughts,
Say again?
even your thoughts.
Even my thoughts. But more importantly, what they can grab, the Constitution, the Fourth Amendment says, against illegal search and seizure, says I have the right to be secure in my papers, my home, my papers, and my effects. What does effects mean?
Anything that's yours.
Anything that's mine. So, my cell phone. Is my cell phone my effect?
Yep.
Yes.
What happens if I send Mr. Wickline a text message? Is it still mine?
It becomes yours and his.
Well, here's the greater question that I bring to you. And this is the point that I want you all to know and to understand, or to kind of start to grasp at it. Right now, there is no law governing the internet. Nothing. If it's on my phone and I haven't sent it, it's mine. If it's on his phone and he's received it, sure enough, it's his. But somewhere between me and him, we have to use internet or some type of communication to send that email, right? There is no law governing the collection of any information off of that internet, which is where that stuff comes from. Yes.
I found a good one on Verizon. There's a lot of government agencies right now trying to push Verizon Wireless into giving up their metadata,
Right.
which is a specific amount of text or what number called what number, but the conversations and the text will remain private.
Right.
And in the argument, some were considering that act justified because when a person dials a number, the company sees that particular number dialed, so there's already, to an extent, no privacy anyway. You've already showed someone that you dialed from this number to that number. So they're saying that's the reason and the justification of it.
Well, and that's going to be their argument from a government standpoint to try to mine that data, because there just are no laws governing. Once your cell phone pings a tower, you know what I mean by ping a tower?
Yes.
I had to do a little research on that. Once your cell phone pings a tower and they locate you, the information is on the tower and belongs to that tower, and it's not yours. You bought the cell phone with the technology in it to allow them to do that, and you don't have to consent.
Yeah, but also you pay a monthly fee and have a signed contract with that company. You still ought to be guaranteed some privacy.
Well, but that's where
I
I'm
mean,
getting.
they can't sell your personal information, so why should the government just be able to come in and take it?
Do that every day with
Well, and they may or may not sell your personal information. They may or may not sell your personal data. There are some companies out there who sell mailing lists on a regular basis. And I don't know, you're getting into something a little different now. I don't know about the laws governing the selling to one business to another of personal data. What we're talking about right now is, and what I want to get across to you is that once your technology engages technology outside of what is yours, you no longer have that right of privacy because you are engaging another piece of technology. When your cell phone pings that tower, your right of privacy is over because that tower does not belong to you. And in that contract, you will not find any verbiage in there that guarantees you any right of privacy. I'll give you all a prime example. It happened about 4 or 5 years ago. A prosecuting attorney bought a brand new car. He'd had it about 6 or 8 months. One evening, he don't come home for dinner. His wife is concerned because he's working on a couple of cases that are a little sketchy. She calls the sheriff and says, I don't know where he's at. It's not like him to not call, to not come home to dinner. Yes, usually he's late, but he always calls and says, hey, I'm working on whatever, I'll be after a while. I get no phone call today, I get nothing, I haven't heard from him since lunchtime. It's now 8 o'clock at night, I'm concerned. Sheriff says, I'm on it, ma'am, let me see what I can do. Sheriff realizes he's just bought this new car. Sheriff calls OnStar and says, I don't know where he's at. We think he might be in trouble. We want you to ping his OnStar and tell me where his car is at so I can find it. OnStar pings the car and says his location is blah, 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 blah. Sheriff shows up. Prosecuting attorney's in the back seat with another woman. It's a bad day. Did the prosecuting attorney have any right of privacy? No. No. He squalled that he did, and he sued. He didn't win. Because when you buy that technology, once that technology leaves your car and pings off that tower, pings off that satellite, it's open.
There does have to be either a probable cause that a crime has been committed or is being committed, or reasonable suspicion.
He had reasonable suspicion that something was awry with the investigator, and he did that. But that's not always the way that works when it comes to this data mining. That was a little example that was over the top, for sure. But the data mining happens in a lot the same way. The difference is the benefits are not always immediately, or the repercussions are not always immediately known like they were in that example. They may mine data for years and years and years, then all of a sudden, somebody's got a problem. The question is at what point are we going to address data mining as a nation, as a people, and where does data mining begin to infringe upon our rights? Our right to privacy. You know, I hear it in his voice on the other end there in Beckley. Some of that he finds very distasteful because he, much like me, says that, you know, I have the right to be private in my things and my effects. If I don't want you to know where I am, then you shouldn't be able to ping a tower and find out what my life location was, because your cell phone pings a tower every so many minutes. Well, as long as it's on, it pings the tower. I don't know how many minutes it is. You all know? But every so many minutes it pings the tower so they can tell you where you were within the last 15 or 20 minutes.
That's not the only reason though, right?
What?
That it pings off of the tower.
No, it's not the only reason, but it's
Okay.
one of the reasons.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes?
What about an instance of like a burn phone?
A burn phone.
Those
Burn
are just
phones
like-
are typically something you'll see on TV. In reality, they're a little harder to get.
Yeah, you gotta have a social security number and everything to get
Well,
those, right?
you go, I mean.
You can steal
these-
that, but it's.
These
still-
people will go into, they'll go into Walmart and they'll buy these, little old phones that they think, and they'll give fake names and they have all that stuff that they do. And they think they got them a burn phone and they're downtown and they use it and then they trash it. And what they don't realize is the whole time they're standing at the counter buying that burn phone, what's on them?
Camera.
Camera.
Yeah.
And they go back with the burn phone and pull the footage and get the guy's or gal's face. And I mean, a burn phone's hard to get. On TV land, they talk about burn phones all the time, like they're, you know, like you can just go anywhere and pick them up. And I suppose if you are well organized and you do have enough steps to go through, you can get a burn phone, but they're not as easy to get as what they would portray them. A burn phone is when it's done right and you can find somebody who can get a burn phone, they're an extremely difficult hurdle to overcome in police work. However, getting them is not as easy as what one would think. And I'm not gonna say it's impossible, but it's not as easy as what you'd think. I just saw a case that happened not long ago on a Tennessee-Virginia line where a couple bought a cheap phone like that and they committed a murder and they thought they had got away with it. You know, they were coordinated it with their burn phone. And they thought they got away scot-free. And it has a picture of them standing side by side buying the stupid phone. You know, you forget that. And again, you know, at what point are you violating my rights by videoing me standing at the Walmart counter buying something.
Well, that's store
Well, that's a
security,
problem.
That's to protect.
and that's private property, private company. To interfere with that, that's a whole different situation.
It's a whole different situation. But at what point do we as consumers say enough's enough? What point? Where's that? All right, drones. I like drones. I don't have no speak ups about drones. They're my favorite. Hey, how many in here own one? Somebody raised their hand last time. All right, I got a couple people own drones. Used to be, when you first started owning drones, anybody could own a drone, and you could own a drone of any size, and you could do anything you wanted to with it, right? What's happened in the last year or so with
A
drones?
lot of legislation's taking place on them.
They're right, they're starting to pass some regulations on drones. One of them is, you all told me last week, it has to be a certain size, right?
9 ounces.
Weight-wise.
Weight-wise, what's the weight?
So many ounces.
9 ounces.
Is it 9 ounces?
Same weight as 2 sticks of butter.
Huh. All right, so you got a 9 ounce drone, it doesn't have to have any registration. Soon that will go away, soon they'll make you register everything.
Couldn't you get around that with just an RC chopper?
Well, I don't think,
Little toy?
I don't think you got the range of a drone is the
You could-
situation.
Yeah, I've got a
Do the
little
same
RC
thing.
chopper and the range on those aren't good enough. And even if they were good range or you only had to go a couple feet, you can't carry anything worth any
Yeah, I
value
think
on.
the camera is the big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that gets into what I really wanted to talk about. How are police officers and how are police departments using drones? Is that legal? Let me ask you a question. There's a case not long ago where a drug enforcement agent went to a house to do what he termed a knock and talk. Now, what a knock and talk is, basically, is it's a Terry stop. They suspect that there's criminal activity, i.e. drug distribution going on in this house. They don't have any evidence, but they have gotten a tip, they've gotten something, and they suspect that there's some type of criminal activity going on in this house. So they go up to this house, and they walk up and knock, and see who comes to the door, and they start gathering information. Who are you? What are you doing? I'm so-and-so with Drug Task Force. I need to know what y'all selling drugs out of this house. It's been reported, blah, blah, just anything to get them to talk, right? So he goes up to do a knock and talk. He goes up and knocks on the door. Nothing happens. He stands around a few minutes on the front porch, knocks on the door again. Nothing happens. He goes around the side of the house into the backyard, to the back door, thinking, I'll knock on the back door. Somebody will be there. When he gets onto the back porch, in the corner where all the trash is a stack of Sudafedrin boxes, 2 or 3 empty bottles of iodine, and some other empty chemical containers. What are they doing in that house?
Making meth.
Making meth. He immediately walks off the back porch, goes and gets a search warrant, comes back, executes the search warrant, arrests everybody involved for a meth lab. He goes to court. What happened?
Got thrown away.
It's thrown out. Why was it thrown out?
He didn't have no reason to go and collect the evidence that led him to that arrest.
Tell me more about what you're saying right there.
He knocked, no one answered the door. He wasn't allowed to go around back and check that door and collect the evidence.
Hold on right there. I like what you're saying, but I want to make sure everybody gets it. Why wasn't he allowed to go around back?
He didn't have a warrant.
And what else did he have?
Ain't nobody answer.
He didn't have probable cause.
He didn't have probable cause. He didn't have a warrant. So here's what happens. What is curtilage?
Property line that's maintained.
Miss Williams, what is it?
Anything around.
It is property line that's maintained, but it's not just the property, it's the area immediately around your house
In regular use.
that's normally maintained and used, including any outbuildings. Now, if I own a 100-acre farm, but I only mow the half acre around my house, what's my curtilage?
Half acre.
The half acre, great. That curtilage may or may not be fenced off. That curtilage is the same as the house. It requires a warrant before you go messing around in it, or permission. okay? So he was absent several things, and you're right, thank you, Beckley. First thing he was absent was probable cause. Second thing he was absent was permission to go around back. He didn't have any reason to be there. But he went around back. So what he gathered was against the law, and they threw it out. Now let's change that equation a little bit. If I want to know what's going on at that house, instead of a knock and talk, I sit up on the street and I fly my drone. And I fly my drone all over that property. And I fly my drone around the back of that house, and that camera shows me, and I zoom in on the pseudoephedrine boxes and the iodine bottles and the other empty chemical packages right there. Can I go get a warrant now?
Depends on the judge.
What's the,
Would it be? I didn't go on the curtilage.
it would be, but what's the height of the drone?
Well, it doesn't matter as long as the drone don't land. I can fly a drone right down next to the ground. Like, according to the law right now, as long as it don't land.
Because
It might get shot.
It's fine, but there wasn't nobody home. Wait a minute.
the way I'm thinking about it though is what would be the difference between a drone or a traffic camera? If a traffic
Well,
camera
traffic cameras on a
saw-
public street.
Yeah, but I'm saying if a traffic camera saw by the curb at their house, which is kind of secluded, whatever, they may have thought it was
It's
a
right
safe
there by the
place.
back door. This stuff was right there by the back door. It's all the way out of sight. It's tucked around behind the house. It's out of sight. The only way you can see it is to go in their backyard, walk up the back steps. You
That
can't see
is,
it from the street.
it's a gray area where the law hasn't caught up with the technology.
I agree. It's definitely a gray area. Mr. Lee,
All right, so in two things.
okay?
In business law, a few semesters ago, we talked about, property ownership and the boundaries of that. And obviously it extends from property line to property line, but it also extends beneath the property down to toward the earth and above the property up to 200 feet in altitude. So in my opinion, and I haven't ever found this anywhere in law, but other than a class, you know, if a drone were to enter the airspace within 200 feet of that person's property, they've just broken the boundary of their property.
So, and I won't argue yea or nay, but 200 feet is kind of like splitting hairs. I've got a zoom lens on this drone.
All right,
I can fly 250 feet and zoom in. I mean, that's
Right.
not,
That's my second point.
All right.
So the second point, I did find in California versus Cerriolo, 1986, the Supreme Court ruled that an individual's private property is not protected by the Fourth Amendment as long as an aircraft is in navigable airspace. And in the case of this case, it was 1,000 feet. However, it also says the Fourth Amendment simply does not require the police traveling in public airway at this altitude to obtain a warrant in order to observe what is visible to the naked eye. So for me, at that altitude, the visibility of a Sudafed box is not gonna be,
Nope.
I can't see that with
No,
my naked eye.
not at a.
well, how about this then? Let me pose another question to you. Every fall, we have eradication. Every fall, they use infrared to find marijuana. What's the difference between using a zoom lens and infrared?
Are they looking inside individuals'
Well,
residences?
wasn't that-
They're looking on curtilage. I'll give you a prime example. Airplanes flying, and this happened to me, and it really made me angry. I thought it was funny after it was all over, but it made me angry at the time. I was working night shift at the time. Worked all night. I got in bed about 6:30, 7 o'clock. I just got to sleep good, you know, maybe a couple hours, sun come up bright, and over my house kept flying this helicopter, just barely, you know, up there. I mean, it was low. Over my house, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. After about an hour of this, I got up, went outside and looked, because I'm not sleeping, because it sounds like to me you're in a military base and that helicopter's gonna land on the roof just any minute. So I go out to check it out. When I got to check it out, I immediately know I can see the big infrared thing on the bottom of the helicopter, and I know it's an eradication helicopter. So I called the non-emergency number to dispatch. I said, hey, my name's Scott Resnick, and this helicopter keeps flying back and forth over my house. I live on a farm. Now, if they found marijuana on my farm, tell them to stop. Let's go back there and get it, because I don't grow it. But whatever they do, I gotta go to work tonight. They're gonna have to land that thing. They're killing me. And the lady said, it ain't you. She said, well, first she said, hold on a minute. I'll call you back. I gotta get a hold of them and I'll call you back. Well, about 10 minutes, she called me back and she said, it ain't you. It's your neighbor. I said, ma'am, my nearest neighbor's on top of the hill back there behind me, probably half a mile. She said, that's right. And he's got marijuana plants growing all in his backyard right along the tree line. And they're circling, trying to decide how they're gonna land to go over and do the eradication and get the police in it. I said, tell them to use my field up there. I've got a big field with no trees. Tell them to land in that, but for God's sake, stop. I gotta go to work, you know? And, so they ended up getting it. But my question is, they used infrared to pull marijuana plants out of this guy's yard. He had like 7. And what he did was, his curtilage stopped at a tree line. And right there, before you get into the trees in his yard, he planted those marijuana plants so they would grow up into the tree, kind of the foliage, and nobody would see them. And they wouldn't have seen them either, except they were using infrared. That was the only way they'd see them. So how do they use that infrared, and we can't use them? And I'm not asking you to answer that. What I'm saying is that the issue here is what he said very much so, in that what we've got is a situation where we've got technology that we are going to use, that we're going to push the envelope of people's civil liberties with, and the law hasn't caught up to our technology yet. So what it boils down to is we as police officers have got a tool that, as long as we use it ethically, as long as we use it smart, as long as we don't just openly, blatantly do things to violate people's rights in order to get an arrest and a conviction, we've got a tool that may not be regulated for a long time that may be very useful. The problem with that is that where you have most law enforcement officers who are going to apply a reasonable standard to these drones, you have those who absolutely will not. Are there any laws regulating drones right now? Are there any states with laws regulating drones?
We're talking about as an aircraft?
Either way.
Yeah. November 2014, the NTSB held that drones are considered aircraft, as the word is defined under federal statutes and regulations. Therefore, they classify under FAR 91.13, which is regulatory prohibition of careless or reckless aircraft operations. That doesn't necessarily have anything to do with surveillance activities, but it does in the operation of the aircraft.
Right.
So yeah, there are.
And when did that law come in?
November of 14.
You know what made that law come in November of 14? You remember the feller that flew his drone on the White House lawn?
Yeah.
He did that in 14, and I don't know when he did it in 14, but I'm thinking it was August or September. And that's why they did what they did with that. Because at that time, he was like, I was just flying my drone, I didn't do anything.
People
Right?
have been flying them around in airports too.
Right, yeah, they've had several near misses with airplanes. Are there any
Yep.
states? I only found 2
In Kentucky
states.
that shot the drone down.
Say again?
You also had the guy in Kentucky that was arrested for shooting the drone down and went to the Supreme Court over it.
What was the outcome?
The outcome was he was actually released of the charges.
Right.
Because the guy was in his yard, you know, and it was impeding on him and his family in the swimming pool.
Right. Yeah. Because there's just no laws regulating these things. But there are 2 states that I can find that do have laws pertaining to specific state laws pertaining to drones. And they're very vague, they're not very good laws, but they are a beginning. And those 2 states were California and Arizona. Those are the only 2 states that I saw that had some kind of low-level, state-level laws regulating the use of drones. I do think there are more coming as drones become more popular, especially when you start talking about aviation safety and major airports. And the big question is going to come in, like he was talking about before, and like we talked about with the cases that I talked about. Your big rulings are going to come whenever police start using these drones. Instead of an eradication helicopter, they're going to use a drone. Because you got the camera, you can use the infrared, you can do all those things. It's much cheaper, and there's a whole lot less risk of life. Instead of putting 2 or 3 sets of eyes in a military helicopter, now everybody's on the ground watching video monitors, and somebody's flying the plane. Flying the drone. If the drone crashes, so what? You lost $10,000 for a piece of equipment, everybody's fine. If the helicopter goes down, you're in real trouble because now you've lost people. So there are differences. Good work, good research. Again, hand those in. You all email those to me. You all hand those in. I want to switch gears a little bit today. Y'all are kind of on the track that I wanted to go on. I'm not going to assign you any homework today, because we're on a snow day and we'll dig into that, get your last homework assignment on Thursday. But today I want to talk a little bit about, and tie what we've talked in so far about cybercrime. Our police technology and the technology that we've got today is in response to and because of the informational explosion that we've had. Now, for all the good that we talk about in here, we talk about drones and we talk about using them in a positive way, and we talk about all these things, the other piece that comes out of that is cybercrime. Cybercrime is probably going to be the new frontier in policing. If you are thinking about an area to get into as you move forward, and you are pretty good with electronics and you're pretty good with computers and you understand technology, cybercrime is the way to go. Cybercrime is where we go. According to the article I just read, each year in the world, $60 billion is spent by private agencies to prevent cybercrime. That's billion with a B. Some of that money is spent on technology. Some of that money is spent on employees to manage that technology. So I would give you all this definition of what cybercrime is. Cybercrime is a traditional real-world offense in a digital version. It is a traditional real-world offense in a digital version. Which brings me to my next part of policing cybercrime. There are two things about policing cybercrime we need to know. The first thing we have to do is we have to locate the perpetrator, physically locate the perpetrator, which in and of itself can be a daunting task. The second thing we have to do, or maybe the simultaneous thing we have to do, along with locating him physically, is locating the perpetrator digitally, his digital domain. Anybody need me to repeat that? Now I'm going to tell you something really scary. Well, I want to back up before I tell you that. I want to make one more statement before I tell you what's really scary. The difference between cybercrime and cyber terrorism is what?
Same as the difference when you're referring to.
Absolutely. And what's that difference? Crime is they're trying to do what? They're trying to make
Money.
right. There's some type of financial gain to most crime, correct? So what we're doing is working with finance. A cyber criminal is looking to make money, he's looking for gain. A cyber terrorist is looking to instill fear. So there's a difference in modus operandi there. All right? They operate in the same digital world, but their motives are very different. Say again?
I said maybe even the same techniques.
Very much the same techniques. Yes.
So how are these super hacker groups like Anonymous, how are they still allowed to be able to do what they want to do? How come we haven't shut them down? Because
And I'm going to come to that right now.
How hard
They
it is
can't,
to shut them
or-
down, yeah.
Well, Well, one, it is very difficult, but I'm gonna give you the scary statement now. You ready? Because you've asked a very legitimate question. And the research I did in preparing for class, I did over the weekend and I finished it up this morning. And Anonymous was one of the groups that they talked about. I pulled up a congressional subcommittee, the minutes from a congressional subcommittee where they had somebody come in and talk, and they spent like 8 pages talking about Anonymous. But here's what I want you to get out of the 8 pages that I read and looked at. Here's what I want you to understand. At the end of that whole 15 or 20 page thing that I read after they talked, dedicated 7 or 8 pages talking about Anonymous, here's the piece that really should scare all of us. The United States has no in-place plan to combat cyber crime. Period. It doesn't exist. They do work some on cyber terrorism, but not cyber crime. And right now, they are not viewing Anonymous as terrorists.
Because it helps us.
No, because they are, the end result is not, what they would consider terror. They are calling them like they used a different word to describe them, but they have no plan in place. Huh?
Gang, maybe?
No, that I don't want to mispronounce. I don't want to misspeak because I don't remember, but I can pull it up. But the whole spiel with Anonymous is that Anonymous was a group that was trying to bring about social change through cyberbullying, if you will, not necessarily cyber terrorism. They view cyber terrorism as what the accusations they made here about 6 months ago. China hacked into our system and pulled out all this data, all this top secret data from us and mined it, back to China, and they have it over there now. And so they viewed that as cyber terrorism. Because they're not pulling this data, because they're not robbing this information, only because they're creating disruptions in the internet or disruptions in certain functions, they're not viewed as terrorists. Does that make sense? Well, that's how
It seems like they're terrifying some people.
And they do, but the difference is they're not necessarily, and I'm not arguing with you that they're not, but according to the federal government, they're not putting them in that category. They don't view them there, and they have no plan in place to get rid of them. They have no plan in place to get rid of them.
We think.
And not according to that 14 pages I just read. According to the 14 pages I just read, they have wasted very little energy on trying to find out who they are, what they do, where they're at.
So they just haven't tried, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's no plan in place to try or to attempt to try, yes.
I'm pretty sure they have hacked into like the IP addresses of these YouTubers and
Yes.
sent police officers to their house
They
saying that
sent
they
police
have bombs.
officers,
And
they
Yeah,
release personal bank account information, and all different types of stuff.
they have, but like I say, for whatever reason, the federal government isn't necessarily interested in them. At least according to that I read, and I'm happy to print it and bring it on next class. The federal government is not happy with them. They don't necessarily like them, but they're not interested in them from a terrorist standpoint like they are the Chinese or the North Koreans or any of those other groups. They're really not interested.
I would think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're not after the government.
No, they're a necessary ally right now.
It could be, yeah, I wouldn't argue that. That's probably a legitimate.
A distraction
assumption.
is that.
I'm not sure, again, I'm not sure why they're not very high on the government's list. I just know that the government does not view them. If they had a top 10 cyber wanted list, not Uber, but Anonymous would not be on it. Because they're not interested in catching them at all. But even more so scary than that I found is they have no organized, the United States government has no organized response to cyber crime in this country. None. That's it. And only a limited response to cyber terrorism. That ought to scare everybody to death. Because as much stuff as is in tune to technology today, an incident like what happened in Flint, Michigan, could be duplicated, all over the world, all over the United States.
How does that tie into like, identification thieves? People that are out there stealing IDs and credit cards and things like that?
Well-
Don't we, go after those people pretty heavy?
From a state level, yes. From a federal level, there is no organized response.
Oh.
The states are leaving it up to the feds are leaving it up to the states to respond to these different things.
And that's if they get caught, correct?
Well, it's if you are able to catch them. For example, here's what happens. And I have seen this 2 or 3 times after talking to the prosecuting attorney in Tazewell. They see this case a lot. Somebody from Algeria or the Congo or wherever sends an email to an unsuspecting person in Mercer County, preferably somebody older. They've done their data mining, they know. They get somebody in their 60s, preferably low income. They've done their data mining, they know these people are fairly low income. And they send them this email that says, look, I need some help. I'm over here on the continent of Africa. I have an uncle who died in Mercer County. He is going to leave me some money. I don't have any way to cash the check. I'm going to mail you this check. You endorse it, take it to the bank. They will show them your ID. They will cash it. You send me, it's a check for $4,000 or $2,500 or $1,800, whatever it is. You keep $500 and send me the rest. Okay, it sounds like a pretty good deal. So they do it. And the first time or two, the bank cashes the check till they discover the check's not any good. Then the person that cashes is responsible for it, and this dude's, they check the email account, and this dude's, he may not be in Africa at all. He may be in England, or he may be in France, or he may be in Holland. Right? And so it becomes very difficult to backtrack and catch the perpetrators of these crimes, especially from a local law enforcement, a state law enforcement level. They really need the interjection of the federal government to be able to step in and take some international action against these people. But are they really going to take international action against somebody for $1,400? Are you really? Are you really? My question was, and I laughed at Commonwealth of Virginia. Commonwealth of Virginia went to Thailand and extradited a 74-year-old white male. Because after he pulled his prison sentence, instead of signing up on the sex offender registry and completing his probation time, he got on a plane and flew to Thailand. He did not bother to get he just bought the ticket and went. He did not bother to get a passport or anything because he was never coming home. He figured if they'd let him through customs in Thailand, he was staying, right? He's done. And so the Commonwealth of Virginia went to Thailand and picked this cat up and brought him back and put him back in jail for failing to register as a sex offender. At what point are you just wasting money?
I'll say that over.
Now don't get me wrong. I think the sex offender thing is a bad crime. But at what point are you saying I'm no longer, by going to Thailand and getting this person, I'm no longer keeping the citizens of Virginia safe. Now I'm keeping the people of Thailand. It's Thailand's job to keep Thailand safe. My job is to keep Virginia safe. And at what point have I done that? So that's a whole different question.
Like if they saw that he didn't have a passport, like would they have seen that before they went to pick him up? Would they have seen that he didn't register for a passport?
Oh, I don't know.
He could not have come back?
Oh, he come back. Once they arrested him in Thailand and put him in jail, and they sent a detainer on him, and he come back.
I mean, if they wouldn't have went and got him, could they have seen that beforehand, that he didn't have a passport?
I mean, they could have and probably do that if they didn't care.
Yeah.
But what you have to understand about a passport is most countries won't let you in without a passport. Thailand's one of the very few countries who don't screen very hard. Yeah, I don't think they much care. But anyway, back on track. All right. Confidential information on businesses and customers result in the loss of $3.5 billion in fraud by United States businesses each year. I was a victim of cyber identity theft. I was a state employee for the Commonwealth of Virginia. And a hacking group hacked into the database of my insurance carrier, took my information, my daughter's information, and my wife's information, along with about 10,000 other state employees. My information is now floating around out there, probably to be used at some point in the future. The state provided me with LifeLock free for a year.
Huh.
That was their answer. Is that how we're going to support future crime victims of cybercrime? The new challenge is going to, with cybercrime, comes into 1, how are we going to prevent it? 2, how are we going to catch them already? How are we going to prevent it? 2, how are we going to catch them? And 3, how are we going to protect the victims of cybercrime? Because if we have a woman now who's beaten by her husband, we have victim witness to step in and provide some basic services, right, for that female victim. How are we going to provide basic services to a cyber victim of crime, and what will those services look like?
Currently, at all, I mean, other than LifeLock, if you lose your whole life saving, $30,000 down the drain, you never did anything wrong, you're just out $30,000.
Correct. Now, I will say that most private industry has stepped up and done a fantastic job, and I know some of y'all have heard this story, but I'll tell it again for those of you who haven't. Last summer, my wife and I, on the way to the beach, we've got a place, well, we don't have a place, but we rented a place in Emerald Isle. Y'all know where that's at, down North Carolina? We were in the place down there, we were going down there and go to the beach. We stopped in a little town down there called Richlands. It's just right before you get to, I guess it's right before you get to Jacksonville. You have to go through Jacksonville to go into Emerald Isle. And it's just before you get to Jacksonville. Richlands is a little town. It kind of reminds you of Bluefield a lot. And we stopped there and got gas. When we pulled out of the gas station, we've been out of the gas station maybe 10 minutes. The credit card company that we used to get the gas with at the gas station called and said, called my wife's cell phone and said, hello, this is such and such credit card company. We just want you to know that a charge was made for like $250 in Texas. So we want to know if that was you. And she said, no, it wasn't me. We're on our way to the beach. We're in North Carolina. We haven't made any purchases except some gas a few months ago. She said, yes, but apparently your card information was stolen whenever you bought gas at that gas station, because now there's somebody tried to make a $400 purchase, and now they're making another $200 purchase at a different retailer in Texas. And she said, well, that's not us. She said, well, I'm looking at it right now. They're trying to get both of those approved right now. And the woman said, look, I'm going to decline both of these purchases, and I'm going to cancel your card effective immediately. My wife said, well, what am I going to do? We're on vacation. She said, well, I hope you got another card, because this one's not any more good. We'll mail you a new card. We'll give you a week to get home, and we'll mail you a new card, and you can activate it with a new number. Now, that business was very proactive, right? They didn't charge us for the fraudulent charges. They were on top of it, Johnny on the spot. They issued this new card. They took care of us. Customer service was great. Was there any criminal prosecution to come out of that? No, absolutely not. Because they were never going to find them. They were never going to know who it was. They just kind of washed their hands of it, stopped it immediately, and moved on. Yes?
New people fake and Princeton. Long story short, I coached cheerleaders at the rec center in Princeton, and we were ordering their stuff from a place out of California. And I was doing it online. I used this place last year, and for some reason, my card kept hitting declined, which I knew. I just checked it. I knew that I had the money on it that I needed to. So the next day, we went to the bank, and New People's Bank will not, for anybody, for all of their clients, they will not let anybody purchase anything over the internet from the state of California, because there are so many people stealing people's credit card information from there.
I can believe it.
And using their card, so they won't even accept a transaction from
I can believe it.
that far.
Do you think that there'll ever be a federal regulation for businesses that they have to make that right with you, or anything like that? Because, I mean,
Well,
at
here's-
some point, somebody's gotta make it right if it becomes an everyday occurrence.
Here's
for
what
almost every
when it
person.
used to first happen all of the time, what you found was that businesses wanted to pass that along to you directly. Now, businesses make it right with you because they have taken it upon themselves to stop it. I don't know of any, it used to be, you only found one or two credit card companies that were proactive in stopping fraud. Now you have a ton of credit card companies who are Johnny on the spot, and that's not a problem anymore. And what they do is, they pass the savings or the bill back to the customers in the form of fees to get to recoup their money. They don't come after you, say you know, the frozen charges on your account, you owe us. That ain't what they do. They just spread it out to everybody and charge those fees and different things to try to recoup most of their money. The other thing is they prevent most of those purchases from happening. They're Johnny on the spot. They got the computers now, the computer systems now that monitor this stuff. And when somebody.
Well, they data mine too, and they know where you use that card a lot of
Right,
times.
they data mine too and know where you use that card, and when the minute something weird pops up on your card, that computer pops up to a live human and says, hey, this purchase was just made, it don't look like what they normally purchase, right? And so they begin to sort it out now, so they can hold purchases and decline things right on the spot.
So in a sense, you're, unwittingly kind of paying through those fees for your own insurance.
Absolutely, absolutely. But the other thing that you're unwittingly kind of paying for is, and it may be that some of you all get into that type of work, is that, somewhere there's people who are in charge of that security system, who work that security, who does the legwork to try to find out who these people are that's trying to rip off that company. And those private security jobs pay big money. Those private sector, investigative jobs pay big money. They're good money. They pay big money, yes.
What was it? I believe it was either Microsoft or PlayStation. The guy hacked into their accounts and stole a penny from so many people that he ended up fighting money. But he gave all the money back the next day, and then they hired him.
Yeah.
They didn't prosecute him.
They hired, well, and they better. That's probably one of the smartest things they did.
That's because they want to fix the
The biggest problem that we have now with the federal government, the people who are absolutely the best at technology don't always have the squeaky cleanest reputations. And our government refuses to employ those people because of some of them have, let's be honest, people who are very, very intelligent, sometimes they look like the rest of us. And they don't always have a squeaky clean pass. Sometimes it's a little checker. That's not necessarily bad, but it can be a little checker. And the government will hire those people, and will use these people, and they're missing the real reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's where your personality testing and your psychological testing comes in as to who you can hire and who you can't. But they refuse to do that. All right, we've run out of time. I'll see you all Thursday. No homework this week. Hand in your homework you got today. Thank you. You like class?
Yeah.
Good. You don't talk much. Yes, Lord. If it don't keep snowing us out, we're gonna be there, I promise. One time. It's killing me. Thank you.
When can I take that makeup test?
You be good. Have a good day. Be safe. Today's Tuesday. See you. Have a good day.
I haven't had many teachers that actually do like school.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you. Today's Tuesday. What does your Thursday look like? Thank you, sir.
Same as, just, class at 4 after this one.
So could you stay late after this class and take it?
Yeah.
On Thursday?
Yeah.
Well, let's just plan on doing that.
Okay.
I'll have the test with me. No, let's go to my office. After this class is over, let's go back over to my office and you can take it on Thursday.
That works for me.
Because I've got a place where you can sit down over at a table and we don't have to be in a hurry. cause I don't know what they got going on here next.
Okay,
Alright?
that works, thank you.
Alright, see you then. Hey, do me a favor, get off the snowboards. You're gonna get up getting hurt bad.
Anything stupid this time.
Well, you're gonna end up getting hurt bad. We gotta get you through school.
Yeah.
I'd say your mama's ready to hang you if you get back on that snowboard.
She was mad when she saw me walking out with it.
I bet.
Have a good
Be good.
You want me to go back over to your office, take the test?